Big story today, and of course that continues to be the cost of living crisis, with a certain idea that we're all facing a pretty dire situation across the country in the months to come. One area which is particularly raising concern with almost everyone is, of course, the rising cost of energy. Well, Leader of the Opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, this morning said the government was not acting quickly enough to address the situation. He spoke to reporters and was firstly asked what Labour's policy would be to combat those rising fuel costs.
Well, unless action is taken, energy bills are going to go through the roof this winter, which is why we, the Labour Party, have said we should freeze energy prices, not let those bills go up, and pay for that in part with the windfall tax on oil and gas companies are making huge profits. Alongside that, we need a national mission to insulate homes. That's a longer-term issue. I called for that a year ago now. If the government had done that, we'd have the best part of 2 million homes insulated. This morning I've been seeing next-generation homes with insulation built into them. So we need to freeze prices for this winter, but we need a longer-term answer. That's insulating homes, a national mission. Instead of that national mission, we've got a zombie government, and that's the root of the problem.
So, how does this practically work? How much is this going to cost? I know it could save consumers money in the long term, but surely the government's going to have to part fund this.
Well, I've been talking about this building block here, and it's quite clear that the building costs are not much higher than the ordinary cost of building a block, but it will be energy efficient. So 2 things are needed. Freeze those energy bills this winter using a windfall tax on oil and gas companies making huge profits. Alongside that, a national mission to insulate our homes. Millions of people are heating their homes and losing most of that because they're not properly insulated. That's why I called a year ago for a national mission on this. If the government had actually done something, we'd have 2 million homes insulated right now, and that would be people with much lower bills. And we can't go on like this with a government that's absolutely missing in action in the middle of a cost of living crisis.
You talked about a zombie government there and missing in action. Then isn't it sensible, if Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister, that she doesn't need an OBR forecast, that she needs to get on and make decisions, have an emergency budget maybe as soon as possible?
We need an emergency budget. We should have had that months ago to deal with the cost of living crisis. But the OBR is there to make sure that money is spent wisely and properly. So, of course, you need the OBR in place for that. And I think that's why there's been such a reaction to Liz Truss's proposal that she's going to just put that to one side. But more important than that, what we need to hear is, what are you going to do about the cost of living crisis? Labour is leading on this. We've said freeze those bills this winter. Make sure people don't pay any more for their energy prices. Alongside that, have an insulation scheme that means that in the middle and long run, we actually have a better answer to the energy crisis that we're in the middle of.
Just a few other things. Criminal barristers, do you support them going on strike?
Well, look, I quite understand, whether it's barristers or others, why people and how people are struggling to make ends meet. And what I want to see is the government to recognise that, do something about it, resolve these issues in whichever sector they are, but also have bigger picture answers. The answer for many people in terms of bills is things like freezing the energy prices, because that's going to drive people even further into problems with their bills this winter. So I want to see the government step in and actually help resolve these issues. Instead of that, we've got a government doing absolutely nothing.
But in saying that, we've got strikes with barristers, with dockers essentially, in Felixstowe, rail staff. Are Labour in favour of these strikes? I don't think the public know whether you're in favour of them, against them, or pretty apathetic towards them.
I want to see these issues resolved. Many working people are really struggling to make ends meet. Labour understands that. That's why we put our proposal on the table to freeze energy prices, because that's one way of ensuring not only that those prices don't go up this winter, but we bring inflation down. Our plan to freeze prices means inflation comes down by 4%. That's a big driver of many of these issues. So we want to resolve these issues. The government is sitting on its hands doing absolutely nothing.
Just very finally, very sadly, of course, Tyson Fury lost a relative of his over the weekend in a stabbing. He's calling for stronger sentences when it comes to knife crime. Is that something that you, the Labour Party, supports?
Well, the first thing I'd say is obviously our thoughts are with him and his family and friends for their tragic loss. I do think we've got to address knife crime. I think that is to do with sentences. It's also to do with the support that we need in our communities. The government's ripped all of the money out of youth services, and they're all interlinked. So yes, we do need action on this, and I think it's time for us all to come together to make sure that we put our shoulder to the wheel on this.